So the Emmys are airing this week, and FX's series Shogun landed a total of 25 nominations, which is pretty crazy, but rightfully so. Do you know why? Because this show was fucking amazing. Now, it is almost completely all subtitles, and let me tell you, I was captivated. By far the best show of 2024 that I saw. My girl, Mariko Sama, she just stole my heart, man. So ladies, watch out. If you're planning on watching this with your man, your significant other, be prepared to kind of take a back seat for a week or two, because Mariko Sama is consuming his every thought. There's no doubt about it. But if you're looking for a show recommendation, in all seriousness, just watch it. I promise you'll get past the subtitle reading. Personally, I am not a subtitle guy myself, but my wife loves having the subtitles on. I'm a closeted, slow reader, and subtitles can kind of get in the way sometimes. If I'm watching sports and it's always covering the scores, or if we're watching a comedy special, it kind of ruins the punchline sometimes. But we will remain a subtitle household, because happy wife, happy life. Now that I think about it, though, I don't know why she wants them on, because when a shot pops up of text on someone's phone or an email or something like that, we always have to pause it, because she can never read it. She's always yelling at me to pause it and read it out loud. And yeah, homegirl can't see shit. So I don't know why subtitles need to be on. But anyways, this show is worth the subtitles. Since most of it's in Japanese, it makes it also seem more real and authentic. Also kind of keeps you engaged, I guess, in a sense. But since I've watched this show, I have just been completely all in on Japanese culture. I've never been to Japan. I don't know shit about Japan's history. But what I do know is that Japanese people just seem to have their shit together, man. They're calm, collected. They go through life just acting in a very disciplined and sophisticated manner, and I respect it. I mean, it's a very good look. There are also these 5 blue zones in the world where people on average have the longest lifespan, and Okinawa, Japan is one of those places. And this is due to factors like climate and environment, their diet, and then also their lifestyle too, though. And one thing about their lifestyle that stuck with me is this concept of Ikigai. So it's all about discovering your purpose through 4 key principles. It's what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and then what you can be paid for. And basically, your potential for finding joy in life depends on how aligned you are with your purpose. Now, it's common to look at this as a Venn diagram where these 4 pillars kind of just all overlap, and the closer you get at accomplishing this overlapped area, that's how you find your Ikigai. The overlap between what you love and what you're good at is your passion. The overlap between what you are good at and what you can be paid for is your profession. And then the cross between what you can be paid for and what the world needs is your vocation. And then the intersection between what the world needs and what you love is your mission. I know that sounded kind of confusing, but the more complex you make this, the more difficult it obviously is to visualize this. But at its core, you can simplify it to whatever gives you purpose and a reason for getting up in the morning. That's your Ikigai. And as I'm learning more about this, I found this book that I listened to this week, Ikigai, The Japanese Secret to a Long and Happy Life. And it really focuses on the people of Okinawa and just how they eat, how they move and exercise, and then also their sense of community and how they value their work as well. And their Ikigai is supposedly a major reason as to why this is a blue zone area. A lot of older people never fully retire. They're consistently moving and working in their gardens, and which they then even provide for their families or their community. They have these things called a moai, which is a social group that forms in order for them to support one another. And these groups can be formed based on friendship or spiritual interests or health, for example, meditating or Tai Chi, and even financial support, which is pretty cool. But if there's ever an emergency or someone in the group needs financial assistance in any way, they pool their money together. And this is really their reason for getting out of bed in the morning, and they just want to support their moai. That's all. That's their Ikigai. Now, it's also important to note, though, that your Ikigai evolves with you. As time goes on, these individual components, your passions, your profession, and your priorities will obviously like shift over time, and so does like your purpose will too. In the book, though, the author expands on 10 rules of Ikigai. They're not like incredibly strict or anything, but they're more or less suggestions to improve your well-being so that you can like live your Ikigai. So first, stay active and don't retire. Once people retire, they kind of give up something they love, and they tend to like decline pretty rapidly in that sense. They lose their purpose for waking up and getting ready in the morning, even if it's just like on a professional level. In the book, the author recommends having a side hustle in a sense, or at least multiple sources of income, so that even if you do retire, you can still feel like you're contributing to something and doing your part in society. For example, a lot of these older Japanese people that do retire end up really tending to their gardens as their main profession, and that's their Ikigai, and they produce for extra income, and it also keeps them engaged and like connected with their community as well. Second, take it slow. Don't rush through life. There's beauty in slow progress. One of the quotes in the book is, "When we leave urgency behind, life and time take on new meaning." This is something I'm personally trying to work on myself. Everything for me is like so just like time dependent, and in reality it doesn't really matter at all if I'm like a few minutes late or something, but time stresses me out, so I'm trying to slow down as much as I can, or at least remind myself to. 3, don't fill your stomach. So there's a Japanese term, it's known as harahachibu, which is a Confucian teaching that encourages people to stop eating when they are 80% full, but in a more like practical sense, right? Studies show that cutting back on calories can lead to better heart health and longevity. And they actually have an interesting little like mind hack for this too. So typically at mealtime, they'll split their meal amongst like a variety of small dishes. So for example, the rice will be on one small plate, their meat will be on another small plate, and then they'll have a bunch of other side dishes. But this will kind of trick the eye and to help you be more mindful of this 80% rule, I guess, which is kind of cool. Number 4, surround yourself with good friends. This goes back to the moai, right? We should all strive to make just meaningful connections and be able to rely on those, and people should be able to rely on us as well. Rule number 5, get in shape for your next birthday. So the author of this Ikigai book goes pretty in depth in regard to how the people of Okinawa, Japan live these very just active lives, right? They don't necessarily work out in the traditional American sense. Like the majority of these people aren't like lifting heavy weights. They're not even like running, for example, but they walk everywhere. And then, like I mentioned, they tend to work in their gardens, which require them to be just extremely active. If you ever watch an older Japanese man get up from the ground compared to an older American man just getting up from like a seated chair position, it's a pretty drastic difference, I'd say. They're just so much more like fluid and, I don't know, just graceful with it. They also do like yoga and tai chi. And again, it's not very like extraneous activities, but it's just more about daily maintenance in a sense. Rule number 6 is to smile. A quote from the book stated that a cheerful attitude is not only relaxing, it also helps make friends. It's good to recognize the things that aren't so great, but we should never forget what a privilege it is to be in the here and now in a world so full of possibilities. At number 7, we have reconnecting with nature. So I mentioned the gardening and the walking like a dozen times now, but these older people are spending an extended amount of time outdoors. And by doing so, it's helping them kind of reconnect with the natural world, which is nice. Rule number 8, give thanks. Spending even just a moment every day giving thanks will help you maintain a positive outlook on life. And they're giving thanks for things like their ancestors or for nature, just being outside, for food, even for like mobility, just like everyday occurrences. So it keeps them thankful and acknowledging the present moment, which is number 9. So live in the moment. This is definitely where the meditation kind of and yoga, I guess, come into play. But throughout the day, it's obviously easy to let your internal dialogue kind of get carried away with your checklist of items of things you need to do in the future. At least that's how I feel. But you obviously want to be as mindful of the moment as you possibly can. Finally, rule 10, follow your Ikigai. You should work to find your purpose in life. This will enable you to really be the best version of yourself while uplifting those around you as well. So after thinking about this a lot, I'm still struggling with coming to terms on what my Ikigai currently is. There's actually a test online that you can take, but one, it's extremely, extremely long. It took me like an hour. And two, it's very base level, I guess, in terms of the questions that were asked. It's not really specific to my life. Like, according to the test, my Ikigai was to teach philosophy, which is interesting, but I mean, that's not really what I'm doing right now. And a large part of this podcast, I guess, is me talking about different like philosophical takes, but I wouldn't consider this my Ikigai. I find enjoyment in it, but if I stopped posting this week, like, I wouldn't lose my sense of purpose in life, I don't think. Anyway, still a very interesting concept. I don't know what else will spark my interest as I continue to like look into Japanese culture. I've got to definitely make my way to Japan one day. But have you seen these videos recently talking about how you can rent out old men in Japan? This is kind of crazy. So based on your preferences, like how active they are or whatever they like to do, you can rent out an older Japanese man just for the day to like accompany you, whether you want to like go out to eat or go shopping or even go for like a long drive. They're down, and they'll just give you like life advice along the way. You know, Japan is just, they're just living in like 2050, man. Like, another example are these Japanese style 7-Elevens. Like, these are wild. This is just a crazy whole different world that they're living in. But that's all I've got for this week. Think about what your Ikigai is, I guess, or you can take the test if you want to. Or at the very least, just go watch Shogun. It's really good. Support my homegirl, Mariko-sama, as she wins lead actress in the drama series. So check it out. But all right, I'll talk to you next week.